Many thanks for your time and your continued support. My name is Elisa Strecke, CR Project Manager at Kuoni. As part of our environmental reporting goals set by Executive Board, Kuoni has teamed up with the sustainability consultancy Sustain It in order to improve environmental data quality and to help you better understand the data collection process in the Credit 360 system. Together with Sustain It, we have developed this video in order to help you troubleshoot common data quality issues and the returns process. We consider data quality to be extremely important. The data you provide us is reviewed by investors and other stakeholders and can affect our reputation. Thank you again, and now I would like to hand over to Roy Bitter from Sustain It, who will be leading this training.
We will now begin the demo of the data entry process into the Kuoni Credit 360 system and the returns query process. To begin, you will need to log into the system. Once the login screen has loaded up, you will need to enter your username. You will then need to enter your password and press enter. Once logged in, you will be with the home page. On the My Data tab, you'll be able to see all incomplete forms and forms that have been finished and submitted. If you click on the Data You are Entering section, you'll be able to view all incomplete forms. If you click on the Data You have Submitted section, you'll be able to view forms that you have submitted for approval. To enter data into a form, you need to go back to the Data You are Entering section. For the purpose of this demo, we'll be using the VFS environmental survey and the paper usage forms. Please note that the content of the forms will be the same for all the divisions, however there might be some variation in the structure of the form. We will start with the VFS environmental survey form. Click on the form that you would like to complete. Once the form is loaded, you will see a list of questions that you need to answer. We are now going to go through the VFS environmental survey form, fill in the answers to the questions, and explain different ways to enter the information, and where applicable, explain the additional information that is required for the question. Alongside this, we will explain the common issues identified with the quality of the data and how to prevent these from being raised as queries after the form has been submitted. There are various question types which relate to the answer formats that we will explain as we go through the form. In order to complete this question, click inside the box and begin entering the data. Under the unit header, you'll need to choose the unit of measure. In this case, there are two options, meter squared and feet squared. We are going to select feet squared. You can see that the value that was previously entered has now converted automatically to 10,763.91. The system will convert the value entered to reflect the unit chosen. We will now continue to enter the data for the rest of the questions and discuss any known issues. For the question total number of staff in headcount, the answer should be the sum of the three previous questions: total number of permanent staff, total number of temporary staff, and other staff. If this is not the case, then the value entered may be queried by the approver and identified as an incorrect data input. The next two questions, number of vegetarians in the office and number of smokers in the office, must be less than the answer for total number of staff. If this is not the case, then the value entered may be queried by the approver and identified as an incorrect data input. For the question electricity consumed, it may be useful to upload an invoice or electricity bill to support the answer provided. Another common issue with this question is that some users cannot obtain the information for their building as the cost is included in the rent of the building. If this is the case, then the first step to take is to ask the building manager if they can tell you the amount that you have used. If this is not possible, then please add a note stating this and provide the total value for the whole building. The approver can then use this value and the answer for the question, total area occupied by VFS in the building, to estimate the cost of your electricity. Please note that it is the annual consumption figure that is required. If you cannot obtain the figure for the entire year, then please provide the value you have and state clearly using the note functionality the period that it relates to so that the approver can estimate for the whole year. To add a note, click here. Then click on the Notes tab. Then enter any notes you want to make about the value. Once you have finished, click on Save. To upload invoices and bills, click on the Files tab. Then click on the Choose File button. You will then need to choose the relevant file from your computer and click on Open. Once the file has uploaded, it will appear below the Choose File button. Then click on Save. This is available for all questions and can be used to justify or explain an answer that you have given. The next question is conditional and is formatted slightly differently. Choose either yes or no. If you select yes, an additional question will appear. The answer for this question is not the total cost for the year, but the total cost for 1 kilowatt per hour of renewable energy purchased. This can be found on the energy invoice or bill. The answer provided will round to the nearest whole unit, however you can still see your original answer by clicking on the box again. For the next question, if your answer is more than or equal to 1, you must provide details of each generator. To do this, you need to go to the Generators section. Here, the details of each generator need to be added. If the number entered for number of diesel generators used on the premises is 3, then there will be 3 entries in the table. Click on Add to enter data into this question. A pop-up box will then appear. All questions marked with a red asterisk need to be answered. The total cost question is a calculated indicator and will remain as NA until the cost per litre question is answered. You can see that the box is slightly grey. This indicates that this is a calculated indicator and raw values cannot be entered. The value will populate based on answers from other parts of the form. Once you have finished, click Save. The answers provided will then appear as an entry in the table. For the water consumption section, the same rules apply. It must be the annual figure. If not, then a reason must be entered as a note. The cost is not the annual figure, but rather the cost per unit of water. For the water consumption question, you must supply an invoice to support your answer. The next couple of questions are requesting the user to check with any paper supplier how much the cost of buying 50% recycled or 100% recycled paper are. By doing this, the user may then discover that it is in fact cheaper to purchase paper with a higher recycled percentage and therefore begin purchasing environmentally friendlier paper. Then, click on Add to enter data into this question. A pop-up box will then appear. All questions marked with a red asterisk need to be answered. There has been some confusion previously with what is required for the question percentage of paper from recycled materials. This question is not asking how much of the paper was recycled at the end, but rather how much of the paper is made from recycled materials. Please enter this value here. Once you have finished answering the questions, click Save. This will add a new row to the table. Again, you can add as many rows as necessary by clicking on the Add button. For the waste management section, fill in all of the values. You will notice that for some of the questions, when an answer is entered, the option to upload an invoice will appear. If this option appears, you must upload an invoice. You can do this the same way as mentioned before. Please remember, when answering questions, to ensure that the correct unit of measure is chosen. In this case, we assume that all of our waste is measured in kilograms, and our cost is in GBP. Therefore, we do not need to change any of the units of measure. The next question is in a table format again. You'll need to answer this question in the same way as you did for the generators and paper usage questions. Click on Add to enter data into this question. All questions marked with a red asterisk need to be answered. Then click on Save. The next set of questions require you to enter the data within the white boxes. Please note that the answers for the questions, number of employees biking or walking to work, number of employees travelling by motorcycle, number of employees travelling by personal vehicle, and number of employees travelling via public transport must add up to the total number of staff. For the question flights, ensure that you upload the information requested. You can do this by clicking on the Add Note or File option. Then click on the File tab. Then upload the file by clicking on the Choose File button. Once you have done this, click on Save. Please ensure that you tick the box. The next two questions relate to the information entered into the table for vehicles. Choose the relevant answer by simply clicking on one of the two options. The data entry process for the VFS Environmental Survey form is now complete. The last bit of functionality in the form that we will explain is the option to upload files and comments. If you would like to communicate with the data approver, click here. You will then be presented with a box where you can enter your notes. You can upload files by clicking on Attach Files. Then, once you have done this, click on Save. When you are finished, click on the Submit for Approval button. This can be found at either the top or the bottom of the form. A box will then appear that will allow you to enter an additional note for the approver. Enter a note. Then click Submit. You will now notice that the form is no longer in an editable format. You will now need to go back to your home page. To do this, you can either click on Back at the top or the bottom of the form, or on Data Entry on the side menu. You will see that the form is no longer under the section Data you are entering. It will now appear under the section Data you have submitted. You can still review the form, but you can no longer edit it. We are now going to take a look at the paper usage form. We will not explain the whole form entry process, but we'll talk about one of the main issues found when reviewing this form. To load this form, you will need to click on Paper Usage. The format of the questions within this form is no different to the in the VFS Environmental Survey. However, some users have misunderstood where to enter the information. In the past, users have tried to input the data in the first three questions within the boxes here. However, you can see that they are grayed out. This is because it is a calculated indicator and the values will populate based on the data entered into the table. You will need to enter the data within this table by clicking Add, and then the first three questions will automatically populate. When the form has been submitted, the approver will receive an email confirming that the data is ready for checking. We have now logged on as the approver and will check the data that has been entered. When the approver logs in, they will see their homepage and the form that the provider has submitted. The approver will then need to click on the form to open it. The approver can now see the data entered within the form. The approver will scroll down through the form and look for incorrect or missing information. Within this form, the approver has noticed that the answer to the question, total area occupied by VFS in the building, appears to be too high and will query the figure. To do this, they will click here. Then they will click on Query Value and enter the details of the query that they'd like to raise. Once the approver has finished, they will click on Save. A red question mark will then appear next to the question indicating that a query has been raised. The approver can then also query values entered into a table. To do this, they will click on the same button as before, which can be found on the heading of the table. We will query the paper table within this demo. They will enter the details of the query, and then click on Save. The red question mark will then appear in the heading of the table. Once all of the queries in the form have been raised, the approver will then return the form to the provider so that they can make the required amendments. As you can see, the form is no longer pending their approval. When the approver raises a query on the form, you will receive an email notifying you that the status of the form has been set to returned. If you receive this notification, then you must log back into the Credit 360 system. Once you have logged back in, you will see on your homepage that the form has appeared again under the Data You're Entering section. To view the query or queries, you will need to open the form by clicking on the form title. Once you have opened the form, you'll need to scroll through it and look for the red question mark. When you find a red question mark, you'll need to click on it to view the query. To view the query, click on the Queries tab. Here, you will be able to read the query that has been raised for the data. To resolve the query, click on the Add Comment or Resolve button. You will then be presented a screen where you can resolve the query. If there is more than one query, then you will see them underneath. You'll need to respond to each query individually. To do this, click on the Respond and Resolve button underneath the relevant query. You will then have the option to write a comment and attach a file. To write a comment, click in the white box. To upload a file, click on the Attach Files button and upload a file as normal. Once you are finished, click on Save. Then click Close Window and click on Save again. 33. You will notice that the red question mark has been replaced by a green tick. This will signify to the approver when the form is resubmitted that you have resolved the query. Any further queries will need to be resolved in the same way. We will now resolve the second query on the form by amending the value. To view the second query, simply click on the red question mark again. Then click on the Queries tab. Then click on Add Comment or Resolve button. Then click on Respond and Resolve. Make a note explaining that the value is incorrect and that you're going to amend it within the form. Then click on Save. Finally, click Close Window and then Save. This will change the red question mark to a green tick. You must remember to change the value in the form. To do this, click on the entry in the table that needs amending, then click on Edit. The pop-up box will then appear. Enter the correct value. Then click on Save. You have now answered all the open queries in the form. You will then need to resubmit the form for approval. To do this, click Submit for Approval at the bottom or the top of the form. Then enter a note to say that the queries have been answered. Once you have done this, click on Submit. The approver will receive another email confirming that the form has been resubmitted. They will then log back in to view the resubmitted form. The form will appear again under the Approver's Pending Your Approval section. The approver will then click on the form to open it. They will then scroll down to the first query and click on the green tick to view the response. If the approver is happy with the response, then no further action will be taken. The approver does have the option to reopen the action if they do not feel that the resolution is sufficient. If this is the case, then the form will be returned again to you in the same way as before. This will mean that the query will need to be resolved again. It is important that you ensure that the query is answered properly. Once the approver is happy that all the queries within the form have been answered, then the approver will approve the form. To do this, they will click Approve, enter a note, and click on Approve again. This marks the end of the form submission process. We hope that you enjoyed listening and that the video will be helpful for future form submissions.